I'm gonna show you some good reps and then we'll talk about it. So when it comes to band-resisted push-ups, I'm gonna show you demonstrated with my hands on the bench. Some of you guys might be strong enough to do these straight up on the floor, that's cool. And some of you guys might wanna set up in your rack so you can modify the bar height, right, to pick the difficulty that's right for you. The higher the bar, the higher your body angle, the easier it's gonna be. And so if you can't do at least 8 reps or at least 5 good reps on the floor, I recommend elevating your hands onto something like your bench or setting up the bar in the squat rack so you can do full range of motion in the rep range. I'm a huge stickler for range of motion with push-ups. A lot of people want to do push-ups on the floor and then they'll do something like this. Imagine I'm on the floor and they're like, oh, I can do floor push-ups. And they're doing this. I want nips to the bar, right? What I mean by that is nips to the floor. Is chest should touch whatever you are using. So if you're using the bench, we are going down until the chest touches the bench. Chest touches the bench. If you're using the floor, chest to the floor. If you're using the bar, chest to the bar. And so I want to make sure that we're using full range of motion. There's no point in going on the floor if you can't do full range of motion yet. Doing full range of motion with your hands elevated is the best way to get stronger if you ultimately want to do push-ups on the floor. So there's no shame in putting your hands up on the bench or setting up in the squat rack or using a countertop or something else to make sure you can get full range of motion. Now, when it comes to placing your hands, I want your hands just outside shoulder width and I want your elbows slightly tucked. What matters most for me is that you find a position that's comfortable for your wrists and your shoulders. For some of you guys, that's gonna be a really tight grip like this. For other people, it's gonna be a little bit wider like this. The differences in muscles worked is less of a concern for me. What I care more about is it feels good on your shoulders and your elbows and your wrists, and you can work really hard with full range of motion. And so your default will be hands outside shoulder width and your elbows slightly tucked. I do not want to see any of this stuff. None of these push-ups with the elbows flared. You'll see this a lot too, where it's like this, right? Instead of this, tuck those elbows, and it will be both better for muscle growth, but also better for the joints. Now, before we get to the band, the other technique cue that I would want you to think about is to have the body moving in one straight line up and down. And so you'll see some people kind of like humping the floor, where they're kind of like this, right? I want you to keep a nice little glute squeeze. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna prevent this from happening. If I squeeze my glutes, it'll kind of pull me back into position. So a little glute squeeze. Don't go crazy because this isn't a glute exercise. And frankly, if you don't need the glute squeeze and you can do this intuitively, that's great, you don't need it. But it can be a decent teaching tool for keeping your body moving down in one straight line. And so there's no clear textbook way to get the band in position, but before we do that, 99% of you guys watching this should use one of these 2 bands. The really thin one, it's usually orange, but not always. And then the next one up, which is usually, but not always red. One of these 2 is right for you. Even for me, I would just use this red one. Most of the difficulty is still coming from your own body weight. The band is just changing where the movement is harder, but just by a little bit. And so I recommend using one of these 2 bands. When it comes to getting in position, there's no perfect way. There's a lot of ways to get this band behind your back. The way I like is putting my thumb through one side, going around my back, and then from the outside going in, getting my other thumb. Now I'm set up like this with the band kind of in the palm of my hand between my pointer finger and my thumb, and I'm gonna bring the band up into my upper back, kind of like underneath my armpits, still with the band like this. Then I'm gonna set up just like this, and I will tell you, it's never perfect. It's never the most comfortable thing on your arms. You're not gonna find a spot that doesn't have some kind of, you'll see when I start going, some kind of like band jumbling around a little bit. But I'm in position here where the band is giving me a lot of resistance at the top. I'm going down, touch the chest, lock out. All the way down, lock out. And so if you can do this on the floor, that's great. Make sure you're getting kind of nips to the floor, chest to the floor. If not, elevate the hands on a bench or set up the bar in the rack or use a countertop, whatever. But I want you to use the band, and we'll go through that one more time. Loop the thumb in, go around the back, the thumb in, band between thumb and pointer finger, then put your hands down on the bench, bring this into your upper back. Body moves in one straight line with the elbows tucked, press all the way up and lock out.